Dr. Sarah Chen stood at the observation window of Europa Station, watching Jupiter's massive form dominate the horizon. The gas giant's eternal storms seemed particularly turbulent today, as if reflecting the tension gripping the solar system. 10 years had passed since humanity discovered the crystalline archives buried deep within Europa's ice. Ancient records left by a civilization that had faced the same threat now approaching Earth. The station's alert system pulsed to life, bathing the observation deck in crimson. Dr. Chen to command, Priority 1. The AI's voice was calm but urgent. Sarah was already moving before the message finished. The neural implant at the base of her skull tingled as it connected with the station's systems, flooding her mind with preliminary data. The Vesterian Empire's fleet had just crossed the Kuiper Belt. In the command center, holographic displays showed hundreds of ships emerging from fold space, massive vessels that dwarfed anything humanity had built. Admiral David Santos stood at the central platform, his dark eyes fixed on the tactical display. Dr. Chen, your predictions were accurate down to the hour. The archives were very specific about their expansion patterns, Sarah replied, taking her place at the science station. The Vesterians have been doing this for 50,000 years. They find developing civilizations, overwhelm them with superior numbers, and absorb them into their empire. But they've never encountered anything like us. Santos smiled, though it didn't reach his eyes. Status of Project Prometheus. Sarah's fingers danced across the neural interface. All installations are online and synchronized. The quantum entanglement network is stable across all 9 sites. She paused, double-checking the readings. We're ready. The main screen flickered to life, showing a being that appeared almost human, save for the iridescent scales covering its face and the 6-fingered hands clasped before it. People of Earth, the being spoke in perfect English. I am High Commander Vexthor of the Vesterian Empire. Your civilization has been chosen for integration into our eternal domain. Santos and Chen exchanged knowing looks. The message continued exactly as the archives had warned it would. You have achieved faster-than-light travel and quantum communications, prerequisites for joining our civilization. Resistance is unnecessary and wasteful. You have 24 hours to submit your formal acceptance. After that, we will be forced to demonstrate our technological superiority. As the transmission ended, Sarah accessed the deep space sensors. The Vesterian fleet was impressive. Over 300 capital ships arranged in their traditional crown formation. But they were about to learn that humanity had spent the last decade preparing for this moment. Send the response we prepared, Santos ordered, and alert all stations to begin Phase 1. Deep beneath the ice of Europa, in chambers that had waited millennia for this moment, ancient machinery hummed to life. Similar installations on Mars, Titan, and 6 other locations throughout the solar system activated simultaneously. The quantum web that humanity had spent years perfecting began its work, invisible tendrils of probability and possibility reaching out to touch every Vesterian ship. Sir, Sarah's voice was tight with excitement. The quantum scan is complete. Their technology, it's exactly what the archives predicted. They haven't advanced significantly in thousands of years. They're still using conventional shield harmonics and linear computing systems. Santos nodded grimly. They'd been the biggest fish in the pond for so long, they stopped evolving. Initiate the response transmission. The message was brief. To the Vesterian Empire, humanity acknowledges your contact. We have studied your history through records left by those who came before. We decline integration. You have 12 hours to withdraw from our solar system. This is our only warning. In the silence that followed, Sarah thought about the irony of it all. The Vesterians had conquered thousands of worlds using the same tactics, the same technology, the same overwhelming force. But they had never encountered a species that had been warned and prepared. The archives hadn't just given humanity advanced technology. They had provided a detailed playbook of every strategy, every weakness, every flaw in the Empire's supposedly invincible military machine. They won't retreat, Santos said quietly. They never have. No, Sarah agreed, watching as the quantum web continued its invisible work, mapping every circuit and system in the Imperial fleet. But for the first time in 50,000 years, they're going to wish they had. The Vesterian fleet's response came just 6 hours into their ultimatum. Massive energy signatures flared across their armada as weapon systems charged, a display of force meant to intimidate. High Commander Vexthor's face appeared once again on Europa Station's main screen, his scaled features arranged in what passed for amusement among his kind. Your defiance is noted, humans, but ultimately futile. We detect no significant military installations in your system. Your handful of orbital platforms pose no threat to our fleet. Submit now, and we will be merciful in our integration protocols. Sarah Chen watched the transmission with clinical interest, her neural implant recording every nuance of Vesterian body language and speech patterns. The archives had been correct. Their arrogance was profound, bred from millennia of unchallenged supremacy. They still haven't detected the quantum web, she reported, monitoring the complex data streams flowing through her station. Their sensors are completely blind to probability-based technology. Admiral Santos nodded, his expression grim but determined. Begin Phase 2. Let's show them what they're really dealing with. Throughout the solar system, humanity's true defenses began to reveal themselves. The seemingly empty space around the Vesterian fleet rippled as quantum fields shifted. Hundreds of automated defense platforms phased into normal space, their existence previously masked by probability manipulation. Each platform was a marvel of human engineering, combining the theoretical knowledge from the archives with humanity's own innovative spirit. Platforms are in position, Sarah announced. Quantum entanglement network is stable. We can neutralize their entire command and control system with a single pulse. Not yet, Santos cautioned. First, we show them our teeth. Activate the Mobius array. Deep within Saturn's rings, a cluster of apparently innocent mining stations transformed. Quantum fields collapsed, revealing massive particle accelerator rings that had been hidden in plain sight for years. Similar installations around Jupiter, Mars, and Venus powered up simultaneously. The Vesterian fleet's formation wavered as their sensors detected the sudden energy spike. Before they could react, the arrays fired. Not traditional weapons, but precisely calculated gravitational pulses that created localized areas of distorted spacetime throughout their fleet. On their ships, Vesterian crews watched in horror as their carefully maintained formation began to break apart. Their navigational systems, based on conventional physics, couldn't compensate for the quantum gravimetric distortions. Ships that tried to maintain position found themselves fighting against space itself. Sir, Sarah's voice was tight with excitement. The quantum web is picking up massive communications traffic within their fleet. They're trying to coordinate a response, but their standard protocols aren't designed for this kind of spatial distortion. Santos allowed himself a small smile. Send the next message. The transmission was brief, a simple text message in the Vesterian language. This is a demonstration of one defensive system. We have others. Withdraw. The response was immediate. A barrage of plasma torpedoes launched from the Vesterian fleet, only to disappear into quantum-induced probability voids before reaching their targets. The massive ships began to move into attack formation, their movements hampered by the continuing spatial distortions. They're deploying fighter squadrons, Sarah reported, watching the data flood through her neural link. Conventional attack pattern, just as the archives predicted. They haven't developed any new tactics in over 3,000 years. Because they never needed to, Santos replied. Until now. Activate the drone swarms. From bases hidden throughout the asteroid belt, millions of quantum-linked drones emerge. Each one was barely larger than a human hand, powered by miniaturized versions of the technology humanity had refined over the past decade. They moved in perfect coordination, their actions guided by quantum entanglement rather than traditional communications that could be jammed or intercepted. The Vesterian fighters, expecting to face traditional defensive weapons, found themselves engulfed by swarms of tiny machines that simply ignored their shields. Probability manipulation allowing them to phase through energy barriers as if they didn't exist. The drones attached themselves to hull plates and began their work, using quantum fields to literally rewrite the atomic structure of the Vestarian ship's outer armor. High Commander Vexthor's next transmission showed the first signs of genuine concern. What manner of weapons are these? Your technology is impossible. No developing civilization could possess such capabilities. You're correct, Santos replied calmly. No developing civilization could create these defenses in isolation. Fortunately, we had help. The same help you denied to thousands of other worlds before destroying them. The archives remember, Commander. And they chose to warn us. As if to punctuate his words, the first disabled Vestarian fighters began falling out of formation. Their once mighty hull plates transformed into brittle lattices by the quantum-guided molecular reconstruction. The mighty empire that had conquered 1,000 worlds was facing something they had never encountered before, an enemy that knew all their weaknesses before the battle even began. And this was only the beginning of humanity's response. High Commander Vexthor's response to humanity's defense was unprecedented in Vestarian military history. He ordered a full fleet reformation. The massive ships began a complex maneuver, their formation shifting from the traditional crown pattern into something new. In the Europa Station Command Center, Sarah Chen watched the movement with intense interest. They're adapting, she noted, her neural implant processing the tactical data. First recorded instance of the Vestarian Empire modifying their standard combat doctrine in over 2,000 years. Admiral Santos studied the holographic display showing the fleet's new formation. They're creating multiple layers of defensive screens, trying to protect their capital ships from our quantum drones. He paused, watching as the massive vessels continued their reorganization. They still don't understand what they're really facing. The Vestarian fleet's new formation solidified. A complex spherical arrangement with their smaller vessels forming a protective shell around their capital ships. Energy readings spiked across their armada as they brought additional shield generators online, creating overlapping fields of protection. Incoming transmission, Sarah announced. The main screen flickered to life, showing High Commander Vexthor. The Vestarian leader's scales had darkened, a sign of intense emotional stress according to the archives. Your resistance is impressive, Vexthor admitted, his voice carrying an edge of frustration. But you have forced us to escalate beyond standard integration protocols. We are activating our primary wave cannon. Your quantum tricks cannot defend against raw power. The transmission cut off abruptly. Sarah's neural implant flooded her consciousness with sensor data. Sir, they're channeling massive amounts of energy between their capital ships. The archives mentioned this weapon. It's designed to strip away a planet's atmosphere. Santos nodded grimly. They're right about one thing. We can't stop that much raw energy with quantum manipulation alone. He touched a control on his command console. Initiate Protocol Ouroboros. Deep beneath the ice of Europa, in chambers that hadn't seen light since they were sealed by long-vanished hands, ancient machinery interfaced with human quantum technology. Similar installations across the solar system activated simultaneously, their combined power reaching out to touch the fabric of space-time itself. The Vestarian fleet's energy buildup reached critical levels. Lightning-like discharges arced between their capital ships as they prepared to unleash their ultimate weapon. High Commander Vexthor watched with satisfaction as the wave cannon charged. No civilization had ever survived this level of assault. The cannon fired, a beam of pure energy that could strip a world bare. But the beam never reached Earth. Instead, it encountered something that, according to conventional physics, couldn't exist: a closed temporal loop in space itself. The massive energy discharge curved through four-dimensional space and emerged behind the Vestarian fleet, catching their own rear guard in its destructive path. By the Eternal, Vexthor's shocked exclamation carried across all frequencies as he watched his own weapon tear through his support ships. "What have you done?" "We learned from the archives," Sarah replied, opening a channel. "Your empire's greatest weakness isn't technological. It's philosophical. You stopped innovating. Stop thinking beyond your established doctrine. But humanity never stops questioning, never stops looking for new solutions." The damaged Visterian ships tried to reform their defensive screen, but the quantum drones were already moving through the gaps, continuing their molecular reconstruction work on the fleet's hull plates. More importantly, the quantum web had used the energy discharge to map the entire Visterian command and control network. "Sir," Sarah reported, her fingers dancing across the neural interface, "we have complete access to their fleet's quantum signature. We can shut down their entire command network with a single pulse." Santos considered this for a moment. "Not yet. First, show them what else we've learned." He opened a general broadcast channel. "Attention Visterian fleet. Your wave cannon was impressive. Now let us show you what we've built to defend our home." Throughout the solar system, massive structures began to emerge from quantum probability fields. Installations that dwarfed anything in the Visterian fleet, not weapons of destruction, but engines of possibility. The quantum technology humanity had developed didn't just allow them to hide their defenses. It let them create things that Visterian science had deemed impossible. "You see, Commander," Santos continued, "while you were perfecting ways to destroy worlds, we were learning how to reshape reality itself. Your empire has conquered thousands of worlds using the same tactics, the same technology, the same philosophy. But you've never faced an enemy who had time to prepare, who knew your playbook before you arrived." The installations fully materialized, vast rings of technology that began to pulse with energy. The space around the Visterian fleet started to shimmer as quantum fields intensified. They were about to discover that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't destructive power, but the ability to think beyond the boundaries of conventional possibility. And in that moment, as reality itself seemed to bend around his fleet, High Commander Vexthor began to understand that he had gravely miscalculated. The Empire had expected to find another primitive civilization to absorb. Instead, they had awakened something far more dangerous, a species that had taken the warnings of the past and turned them into a foundation for unprecedented innovation. The quantum rings surrounding the Visterian fleet pulsed with increasing intensity, their energy patterns defying conventional physics. In Europa Station's command center, Dr. Sarah Chen monitored the readings with growing excitement. The technology they'd developed by combining human innovation with the Archiv's knowledge was performing beyond their highest expectations. "Quantum field stability at 98%, she reported, neural implant streaming data directly to her consciousness. The probability matrix is ready for full activation." Admiral Santos watched the tactical display as the massive Visterian ships tried to maneuver within the increasingly constrained space around them. Their once perfect formation was now fragmented, their traditional tactics useless against forces they couldn't understand. "Sir," Sarah's voice carried an urgent note, "we're detecting massive power fluctuations throughout their fleet. They're attempting something." The space around the Visterian flagship suddenly warped as they activated their most closely guarded technology, the dimensional slip drive that had helped them conquer 1,000 worlds. High Commander Vexthor's voice boomed across all frequencies. "Your tricks end now. No force can track our ships through dimensional transit." But as the Visterian vessels began to shift between dimensions, something unprecedented happened. The quantum rings didn't try to stop them. Instead, they synchronized with the dimensional shift, their fields adapting to match the exact frequency of the Visterian technology. "Perfect," Sarah whispered. "They did exactly what the Archives predicted." Deep within Europa's ancient chambers, systems that had waited millennia for this moment activated. The quantum web that humanity had woven throughout their solar system wasn't just a defensive network, it was a key to understanding the fundamental nature of reality itself. As the Visterian fleet attempted their dimensional escape, they found themselves trapped in a space between spaces, held in a quantum matrix that operated on principles their science had never discovered. What? What is this? Vexthor's next transmission showed genuine fear. His mighty fleet, the instrument of empire that had subjugated countless civilizations, hung motionless in a void that shouldn't exist. Admiral Santos opened a channel. "You're experiencing what we call a quantum probability lock, Commander. Your dimensional slip technology is impressive, but it's based on a fundamental misunderstanding of how reality works. We've learned to manipulate not just space and time, but probability itself." The Vesterian ships floated in the void, their engines flaring uselessly against forces they couldn't comprehend. Their mighty weapons, designed to destroy worlds, were meaningless in a realm where conventional physics was merely a suggestion. Impossible. Vexthor's voice cracked with desperation. No civilization could develop such technology so quickly. "That's where you're wrong," Sarah interjected. "We didn't just develop technology. We developed new ways of thinking. The archives didn't just warn us about your empire. They showed us that the universe is far stranger and more wonderful than your rigid doctrine allows." Throughout the fleet, Vesterian crew members watched in horror as reality itself seemed to flux around them. The quantum drones, now operating in this between space, continued their work unimpeded. Hull plates transformed, energy systems fluctuated, and their mighty ships became little more than elaborate sculptures in space. "Your empire's greatest weakness," Santos continued, "isn't your technology. It's your inability to imagine new possibilities. You've spent thousands of years perfecting the same techniques, never questioning, never innovating. Humanity, on the other hand, never stops asking, what if?" In the void between dimensions, the Vesterian fleet's command and control network finally began to break down. Ships lost contact with each other, their conventional communications useless in this quantum realm. The mighty empire that had terrorized the galaxy was experiencing something entirely new: helplessness. "You face a choice, Commander." Santos' voice was firm but not unkind. "We can keep your fleet trapped here indefinitely, or we can release you. But if we let you go, you must understand that everything has changed. The galaxy needs to know that your way, conquest and forced integration, is no longer the only path forward." Sarah's neural implant detected massive communication bursts between the Vesterian ships. Their crews were beginning to panic, their rigid military discipline cracking in the face of something beyond their experience or understanding. High Commander Vexthor's next transmission showed a being whose worldview was shattering. How did you do this? The archives you spoke of, they were left by the predecessors, weren't they? The ones we thought we had erased from history." "Yes," Sarah confirmed. "They knew your empire would continue expanding, continue conquering. So they left warnings, and more importantly, they left knowledge. Not weapons or ships, but understanding. Understanding that humanity took and transformed into something new." The quantum rings pulsed again, and in the void between dimensions, the fate of not just Earth but the entire galaxy hung in the balance. The next few moments would determine whether humanity's first contact with galactic civilization would end in peaceful resolution or become a lesson that would echo through history for millennia to come. In the quantum void between dimensions, High Commander Vexthor stood motionless on his flagship's bridge, watching reality itself fluctuate around his trapped fleet. For the first time in his 300-year career, the weight of genuine uncertainty pressed down upon him. The empire that had seemed invincible for 50,000 years had been outmaneuvered not by superior firepower, but by ideas they had never considered possible. "Your terms," he transmitted finally, his scaled features tight with resignation. "What does Earth demand?" In Europa Station's command center, Admiral Santos exchanged a look with Dr. Chen before responding. "We don't make demands, Commander. We offer a choice, a new way forward." Sarah's neural implant processed incoming data from the quantum web. "The fleet's power signatures are stabilizing," she reported. "They're powering down weapon systems across all vessels." Santos nodded and opened a general broadcast channel. To all ships of the Vistarian Empire, we're going to release you from the quantum lock. But first, there's something you need to see. Throughout the void, holographic displays materialized on every Vistarian vessel. The quantum web that had trapped their fleet now served as a transmission network, showing them images that had been hidden in the archives. The true history of their empire's expansion. The predecessors didn't just leave warnings, Sarah explained, her voice carrying to every ship. They left records, complete records, of every civilization your empire absorbed, every culture that was erased, every innovation that was suppressed because it didn't fit your doctrine. The images continued, thousands of worlds, millions of species, countless possibilities lost to the empire's rigid standardization. But more importantly, they showed alternatives, ways that different species had solved problems the empire had never considered. Technologies developed along completely different paths than the Vistarians had chosen. Your empire's greatest achievement, Santos continued, was creating stability. But that stability came at the cost of diversity, of innovation. The predecessors understood this. That's why they left their knowledge scattered across the galaxy, waiting for species that would use it differently. High Commander Vexthor's voice, when it came, was subdued. You could destroy us now. Our fleet is helpless in your quantum field. Why show us this instead? Because destruction isn't the answer, Sarah replied. The archives showed us your empire's history, but they also showed us its potential. Your civilization has achieved something remarkable, unifying vast regions of space, creating networks of communication and trade that span thousands of light years. That shouldn't be destroyed. It should be transformed. The quantum rings pulsed one final time, and reality shifted. The Vistarian fleet found itself back in normal space, their systems fully functional but their weapons still offline. The quantum drones withdrew, their work complete. We're releasing you, Santos announced, not as a defeated enemy, but as proof that there's another way. Return to your empire. Show them what you've seen here. Show them that there are paths to advancement they've never imagined. And if we choose to return with a larger fleet? Vexthor asked, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer. The quantum web extends far beyond our solar system now, Sarah explained. The archives didn't just teach us how to defend Earth. They taught us how to seed quantum technology throughout space itself. Your empire's expansion pathways are already filled with probability matrices waiting to be activated. The implications struck home. The empire's traditional strategy of overwhelming force was now obsolete, but Santos wasn't finished. More importantly, Commander, think about what you've witnessed here. In just a few decades, humanity took the basic principles from the archives and developed technology your empire never imagined possible. What could your civilization achieve if it redirected its vast resources from conquest to innovation? Throughout the Vistarian fleet, crews watched their commanders, waiting for direction. Millennia of rigid hierarchy were being challenged by new possibilities. The choice ahead of you isn't between conquest and defeat, Sarah added. It's between stagnation and growth. The archives show that your species was once known for its creativity, its desire to explore new ideas. That potential still exists. High Commander Vexthor stood silent for a long moment, his black eyes reflecting the holographic displays still showing possibilities his empire had never explored. Finally, he straightened, showing the bearing that had made him a leader of the mighty Vistarian fleet. We will withdraw, he announced, and we will. Consider what we have seen here. But know this, humans, you have changed more than just this battle today. You have changed the galaxy itself. As the Vistarian ships began their departure, Sarah monitored their communications. Already, discussions were breaking out across their fleet. Questions that hadn't been asked in thousands of years, ideas that had been suppressed by doctrine and tradition. They're really leaving, she said softly. The archives predicted this outcome, but I hardly dared believe it. Santos smiled, because the archives understood something fundamental about both our species. The desire to grow, to improve, to innovate. It can be suppressed, but never truly eliminated. Together, they watched the mighty fleet disappear into fold space, carrying with them ideas that would send ripples through an empire covering a third of the galaxy. Humanity's first contact with galactic civilization hadn't ended in either conquest or destruction, but in something far more powerful, the beginning of change. And in the ancient chambers beneath Europa's ice, systems that had waited millennia for this moment began their next task, preparing for the day when humanity would venture out into the stars, not as conquerors or victims, but as innovators ready to help forge a new future for all species.